This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. Cris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Cris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer, and we welcome you to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm here with certified financial planner Cris Wallace. He's president of WG Financial Group, and then, of course, also joining us from the firm, Graham Bauer. He is the relationship advisor there. Richard Constantine, certified financial planner and a relationship advisor there. So we are off and ready to have a great show. I want to give you the phone number because the guys are here to give you some really helpful advice about retirement planning. But you might have questions of your own. So here's the number, 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach out to Cris and go in for a complimentary visit. Get on his calendar. Maybe you like to text. Just text the word visit to this number, 256-937-2010. And you can set up that appointment that way. Again, a complimentary discovery session. Check us out on Facebook throughout the week. You can always find out what Cris is saying there regarding any news headlines. And remember our motto, it's plan, retire, and play. That is what we want for you. That is what Cris and his team wants for you. Find us online anytime at wgfinancialgroup.com. Remember, our show is also available on Spotify and, of course, Apple Podcasts. Just search Rocket City Retirement Show. And Cris, hello to you.
Hey, Luann, how are you doing?
Just doing great. Graham, hello.
Hey, Luann.
And Richard.
Hey.
And we're all here, all four of us here today and accounted for. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Graham, give us some WG positivity.
Yeah, so I saw this article and I thought it was really cool. I like to, when I can, find things that are maybe more centered around people of retirement age or pre-retirement age. So our story today has to do with planking. Have you guys, the exercise of planking. Have you guys ever planked before? When you can just put your arms on the ground and hold the core exercise, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, actually.
Yeah, so there was a new world record set for females by a 59-year-old woman named Donna Jean Wild from Alberta, Canada. And I'm not going to have you guys guess because I feel like we always get into this thing and Cris ends up overshooting the guess and then it looks wimpy or something.
We have to do it.
Okay, fine.
Very competitive, yes.
Okay, take a guess. How long she planked for to get the world record?
Can you give me an idea of what another, like a men's one was? Maybe?
So I think the men's world record was around 8 hours.
Okay, good to know. All right, go ahead, Cris.
So she's a woman and she totally crushed the man, I'm sure, or else
right?
You wouldn't be
again,
bringing this up.
This is women's world record, so she didn't beat the 8 hours.
Oh.
I'll just tell you that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I was on the same train as Cris. I thought she was going to beat in the male because she was lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to guess now that you've already kind of told me, because I was literally going to say 16 hours, but
wow.
Hey man, shoot for the stars when you land on the moon.
You know what? I'll give you one more piece of information.
Okay.
The previous world record for females was 4 hours and 19 minutes.
Okay. So she did 5 hours and 12 minutes.
Any other guesses?
Going 4:45.
4:45. Luann, do you have a guess?
Yeah, I'm going to go 5:59.
Okay, so it was 4 hours and 30 minutes. So she beat the record by about 11 minutes. But so it was a pretty cool story. I can't probably plank for 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
No.
So 4.5 hours is crazy.
Amazing.
She said that she actually learned how to plank really well from a time where she broke her wrist, and she was a very big, exercise junkie. And when she broke her wrist, she couldn't lift weights, so she started practicing planking. And according to her husband, she also has some kind of condition where you have, I guess, reduced senses of pain in your shoulders and arms. So maybe that's kind of
that did it.
It kind of helps as well. But I just thought it was really cool to see someone almost 60 years old, taking that world record with how many young, fit people we got out there.
I can't plank for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Much less over that amount of
don't
time.
even know. Barely. Wow.
Our punishment when I was playing baseball in college was for every minute someone was late onto the practice field. That's how long we had to plank for as a team.
That many minutes.
I've been terrorized by planking before.
Oh, it just has a bad feeling in your brain, doesn't it? You don't want to think about it.
It does.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's an amazing story. So a female from Canada set a new women's record for planking the longest.
Yeah, and apparently also the previous world record holder was also from Alberta, Canada.
What is up with this?
I guess they just make them different over there as far as planking goes.
Bunch of plankers up there.
Yeah, it's their biggest, export, I guess. Planking.
Yeah. What else do you do? It's probably during the winter. It's all snowy and can't go anywhere.
Everybody plank.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's good. Love the stories. Always love that, Graham. Thank you for bringing that to our show. We need positive news in our lives. And now let's turn to something maybe not so positive, Chris.
Let's go something positive. Hey, let's talk about the stock market.
Yeah, the market. Give us an update.
Well, I don't want to say too much because this week has actually started out pretty good. The last few weeks have been, not so great. And I think we've seen both the stocks and the bond markets kind of take a tumble together. And I believe what's happening is the markets are starting to believe that the feds are going to leave the rates higher for longer. And I think that's what's happening. The markets at this point are basically pricing in like one more cut at this point, or one cut starting later in the year, I should say. And honestly, I don't know if we'll get there. I think if a rate cut were to happen, or several rate cuts, then that could mean, reigniting inflation. We could see that, start to go up again. And we've already seen kind of a stall, if you will. So I think the feds are in a tough position. I really do. One of the things I did notice as I was just kind of looking at charts is there has been a slight upward trend in the last year in unemployment. Now, it hasn't been a lot, but if you've been paying attention, more and more companies are laying off people. And it's not a lot at this point, but there has been a slight upward trend to unemployment. So that'll be something else we probably want to keep our eye on. And if we just look at year-to-date numbers, you can see the S&P's up about 4.5%. And the aggregate bond index is actually down -3%. So here we are again, talking about bonds kind of headed in the negative direction. And again, they've just continued this, horrible 3-year run that they've had where it's just been negative news about bonds. So, investors, I think, have to look in alternate places for that side of the portfolio, if you will. So moving on from that, I wanted to talk about something that I found pretty interesting. And I've heard this stuff before related to retirement planning, but I happened to be listening to a podcast over the weekend, and it was about a Brazilian pop star, and then she started talking about climbing Mount Everest.
Okay.
So, I started thinking about that, and some of the things that she said were pretty interesting. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go take a look at this. And so I texted Graham, Richard, and I said, hey, start doing your kind of research on this because I think it's kind of a unique and fun topic to actually talk about. So when climbing Mount Everest, which, by the way, I have no desire to do ever in my lifetime. It's just not something that I want to do.
Right.
I think it was the movie Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone I saw. I just have no desire to be like on mountains. I'm already afraid of heights as it is.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So anyway, through 2022, 310 people have actually died trying to climb Mount Everest.
Wow.
Now keep in mind, when we talk about climbing, we're talking about climbing it and then you got to climb back down, right? Right, exactly. So through 2022, 16,000 non-Sherpa individuals have tried to make this climb, and 5,633 have been successful. That's about 35% for you math wizards out there.
Gosh.
Now, I'm surprised you did not ask me what a Sherpa was, Luann.
You know what? I know this analogy, so I know what a Sherpa is. Yes.
You know what a Sherpa is?
Totally.
Okay, so you know what a Sherpa is.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Well,
it's the guide to get you down who knows how to, where to go, how to get down safely.
Maybe. Not really.
Or is there more?
It's wrong.
Oh, is it wrong? No, I'm wrong.
A Sherpa is an elite climber. So that could be a guide, I guess. But the Sherpa is considered like an elite climber. So this would be like Cris Wallace trying to climb up Mount Everest. Again, you won't see that happening. So I found that really interesting that only 35% have been successful.
Yeah.
Now, 35% of all deaths from 1950 through 2019 for non-Sherpa are caused by falls. 22% are caused by exhaustion. 18% is altitude sickness, and 13% would be exposure. 44% of the deaths for Sherpa, the very experienced ones, their deaths were really caused by avalanches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I found this interesting. Richard, Graham, did you happen to do any work on this at all? If not, I've got some other stats I kind of want to go over I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I did do some research on it. I have not seen the Sylvester Stallone movie that you're referencing, but I don't think I need to not have any desire to go 30,000 feet above sea level. But yeah, I actually ran into a lot of the same statistics. The one thing that I was curious about, and I actually haven't really been able to find any stats on this, but I'd probably continue doing some research to see if I can, is the people who are successful getting to the top with a Sherpa versus without. Because for a long time, you didn't actually need to have a Sherpa. Usually it's a local Tibetan person who kind of basically that's their job. But I believe in 2013, they actually made it a requirement without getting like a special permit that you have to hire a Sherpa to go with you because, it's very dangerous and there's been a lot more deaths as it's become more accessible. So that is one thing I'd be really curious about to know is, the amount of people that are getting up there without the assistance of, a master climber, a local person that's been doing this for years versus just kind of going at it alone.
So a Sherpa, I guess, am I wrong?
I think you're wrong. It's like a local Tibetan person that's like their job. From what I understand, they make your food and they carry your bags. There's usually a couple of them if you're going on like a guided.
You're 100% correct. I've now re-Googled this. I should have done a little bit of research on Sherpas. But no, Luann, you're absolutely correct. Graham, you're exactly right. Many Sherpas are highly regarded as elite mountain climbers, which that's what I said. But
experts in that.
Experts in their local area, and many of them, they kind of serve as guides. So my apologies. I was wrong. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I'll stick to the retirement plan, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so really crazy stat. Here's the big crazy stat that I found pretty wild is that 84% of the deaths actually occurred on the descent.
That's so scary. Oh my.
It is. So you get all the way to the top and you're like, I made it, I've done it, I've reached like the point, and then you end up dying on the way down. So that to me was a pretty wild stat, just in and of itself. And I think, in reading some of this, I think some of it was probably just being careless on the way down, or also just being extremely, extremely exhausted.
Right.
And, I always have to tie this stuff to kind of retirement planning, because this is how I heard about the story. It was kind of like, the climb down, which would kind of be synonymous with the taking from your portfolio in retirement. So your decumulation phase of your life. And, many people can make it, and many people have made it to the top of Mount Everest. And then it's on the way down where 84%, end up, passing away. Those that actually pass, the 84% of them pass away on the way down. When we're talking about retirement planning and getting to retirement and then starting that descent into retirement, that can be a daunting task for a lot of people. And, when I sit down with people, one of the things that I tell them is like, retirement is different. It's different than when you're trying to get to retirement and you're saving and saving and saving, and you're buying little pieces of term life along the way, and you've got your income faucet. Now all of a sudden the game changes when you get to retirement. It is completely different. And it's almost like you're having to block out some things emotionally. And then also you're having to do things kind of in reverse that, from the way that you've done them, 30, 40 years prior to that. So that's one of the areas that we really excel in. And that's, helping individuals and families who have really made it to the top. They've made it to the top of Mount Everest and they're ready to start that descent into retirement. And you can start the process by giving us a call for your discovery session, 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
The Rocket City Retirement Show continues with more right after this.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Don't panic in uncertain market times. Let Cris Wallace be your trusted guide. Call Cris Wallace today at 256-937-2010 for expert advice and support. That's 256-937-2010.
Hi, we're so glad you joined us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Cris Wallace of WG Financial Group, president of the group, and then also joining us, Graham Bauer and Richard Constantine. So, we know we're faced with questions every day. You wake up in the morning and you're like, what am I going to make for dinner today? Or you double check, when was that meeting? Just easy questions for the day. But when you start to consider retirement, then those questions get a lot more complicated. So, Cris, let's get into that. Questions about retirement. What should we be asking as we get close to retiring?
Well, there's the obvious one, right off the bat is like, when can I retire?
Yes, when?
Mm-hmm. And then those that, get to that point, they are oftentimes thinking, have I saved enough? Because we've talked about this before on the show. Like, we know when we're going to retire, but we don't know when we're going to retire from this earth. And so that leaves it kind of open-ended on the back end, if you will. So then it becomes, do I have enough to get from where I'm at today, assuming I live 30, years into retirement? Have I saved enough, and will my money last? But the big one that I think, I think a lot of people put thought into this, but then I think there's a certain percentage of the population out there that would not put enough thought into this. And that is, if I pass away, will my loved one be okay? And I'm not at all suggesting that spouses don't care or think enough about their spouses. I just don't think that there's enough thought put into it. And when you think about passing away, and I've sat with a lot of people, I would probably say, at this point in my career, I probably sat down with, more than 1,000 individuals and families over the years that I've been doing this. And one of the things that I hear a lot from the husbands is, if I pass away, well, she's got the house and she can sell this and she can sell that and she can downsize. And I just want to remind you, again, having sat with many, many widows throughout my career, and about five of them last year, that's an emotional time. And I think that, and let me say this, wives are strong. I mean, they are. My wife is incredibly strong, but in a situation where they've lost a spouse and there's a lot of emotional stuff going on in their minds and that they're having to deal with, and let alone just the fear of being alone and do I have enough money? And for you to think that, well, they can just sell the house. It's going to be easy. Let me just say it's not. It's not easy. And it takes a while to work through a lot of that grief, because you go through those different, phases of stages of grief, if you will. And I have seen it with most of the widows that I work with. Over time, they are able to process it. But, for several months, it's a very difficult type of, situation to deal with. And I think, typically, usually after a year and a half or so, or maybe about it, maybe it's a year to year and a half. What I see when widows come in the office is that glow starts to come back.
Aww.
because you can literally see the pain on their face when that event happened. So just want to make sure that as a husband, and I'm talking to myself too, because sometimes I have a tendency to just think, oh, it's easy, just do this, but it's just not that easy. So, will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? I would just challenge all of us men out there to just put thought into that.
Wow. You're taking me to my best friend who just lost her husband a couple of years ago. And I've seen her and how hard it's been for her. And, that house that they built together, this was a second marriage for both of them. And they were just so in love and so happy. And she had to sell that house. It was too much for her, and just my heart still breaks for her. And yeah, so you are right. Will my loved one be okay if something happens to me? That has to be part of the plan. That is part of your, plan that you put together when you're working with people for retirement. I mean, it's not just, just everyday spending. It's just the legacy planning too. And you put together a holistic plan that includes, income planning and investing and healthcare, tax strategies, and then the whole legacy thing. But let's go back to that question about, have I saved enough? I bet that's the one that when people come to you, they want to know, because then that answers when I can retire, right?
Yeah, it does. And I think I've received the question at the end of a lot of first meetings. I'll have them look at me, them being the couple, or maybe it's an individual, and they'll say, well, how do I look? We've gone through a discovery session, we've collected all the information, and they want to know, have they saved enough? And sometimes I'm able to say, yeah, things look pretty good. I can do some rough calculations right there, just ballpark figuring, and say, okay, yeah, things look pretty good. But then there's some that are pretty close. Like, I look at the numbers, and as I'm doing my intake, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be tight. Like, the expenses are higher. They still have some debt. This is going to be a little bit tight. And I think when we go through that process, not just the first meeting, but when we go through the planning process of building out the financial plan, laying out the strategy, kind of moving forward, that's how you start to answer that question, have I saved enough? And you build in some, safety nets, as I like to call them, or contingency plans, just in case certain things happen, to make sure that they don't outlive their assets.
Okay. So, how about this? How many sources of income are you seeing people having in retirement?
Well, in Huntsville, there's quite a bit of military. There's quite a bit of, federal employees. So, those individuals and families, have pensions and Social Securities. But the large majority of families out there today, they're not going to have anything but Social Security. So the responsibility falls in the lap of the saver at that point to make sure that they're putting away adequate amounts of money into their retirement plans so that they can create their own pension out of their own funds, i.e. you're going to take money out of your portfolio when you retire, or you're going to buy some sort of an annuity to kind of create some other stable income in retirement. But usually, I would say for the most part, if you don't have the pension, most families are just going to have Social Security, and the difference between their expenses and what they're bringing in for Social Security, that is going to have to be funded from what you've saved. And that's typically how most of the families are going to be set up today. Pensions are becoming more and more like dinosaurs. They're, for the most part, unless you're a government employee or military, they're pretty much extinct.
Gosh, they are. I feel so fortunate. I just taught for a handful of years and 7. So I'm going to get a little something, for my pension. And I'm happy about that. That'll cover groceries. So, yeah, that is so good. So I want to give your phone number out right now, just because we're kind of halfway through this segment. If you would like to have a discovery visit, a discovery session with Cris, it's complimentary. All right. We want you to remember that. And here's the phone number, 256-937-2010. Any questions that you have, get them answered by going in and talking with Cris. He's offering you an hour of his time complimentary. If you prefer to text the word visit to this number, 256-937-2010. And remember to always go to their website too, wgfinancialgroup.com. Find out even more about Cris and then all the other people joining us today on our show, Richard Constantine and Grant Bauer. Find out all about the awesome team at WG Financial Group. We're so happy to have you along with us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Richard, let me ask you this question. What are some ways that you guys help them figure out that exciting retirement date?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. And it's one of the many times that clients absolutely light up in the office and they start leaning in from their chairs, that they want to know that specific date, right? And it really comes down to it's a two-sided approach, right? One, it's based on their projected asset levels in the future. We don't have crystal balls, but we have, good ideas based on their contributions, plus what the market has historically done and what we're projecting the market to do in the future, what that asset level will be. And then the second side of it is, actually constructing a budget with the client. And both of those, the budget has to line up with the future asset levels. And if they do not, you either have to modify their current savings rate, or we have to modify their budget to exclude some of the fluff that's in there. And most clients, they don't want to exclude the fluff, because that's what makes retirement, more enjoyable, more exciting, all the above, right? They want to be able to buy their granddaughter the new bike when it comes out that she wants, right?
Aww.
And so it's how can we get the client's asset levels to the areas that we need for them to be able to enjoy their retirement to their fullest.
Yeah, that's the part of the play, right? Plan, retire, play.
Exactly.
So, Chris, how do you help those clients develop that spending plan, budget, whatever you want to call it, for their retirement days?
Yeah, as far as building the budget, I would say this. So here's what I want to make sure we don't get a lot of calls and say, hey, I need you to help me build a budget. There's a lot of tools online today to really help you put together a budget. What we typically do in the office is many families will bring in their budget, and then we'll kind of take a look at it and see if there's anything that we think is missing. But for the most part, people that are preparing for retirement, they're saving their, adequate savings rate. They kind of know what they're spending. So we don't design and build a budget. We will make suggestions to it. And Richard kind of pointed one of those things out, is that additional fluff. We call it the Amazon factor at the office. Everybody, for the most part, is using it. And, it's just one of those things everybody's going to need to build into their, to their budget nowadays. What we usually do for those families that are not, operating on a budget. I mean, let's face it, some families have enough money coming in to where they're like, hey, we just have enough money coming in and we can do life with what we have coming in and we're good. We don't actually have to write it all down. So then one of the ways to back into that would be to take a look at the net income.
Okay.
So if the family's not sure what they're spending, okay, cool. What are you getting as net income from your paychecks after taxes and 401k and all of that? What goes into the bank account? Oh, $7,000 a month. Okay, cool. That's your budget right there. And that's an easy way to kind of back into it. But make no mistake about it. When you move into retirement, you are going to have to understand, how much money you're spending.
Right. Now, Richard, let me ask you this. When you're working with clients and they're in retirement, are they kind of surprised about their spending? Did they think they would spend less in retirement, or are they like, oh my gosh, we need more money?
Yeah. So, from what I've seen, this happens, way too frequently, unfortunately, is that the husband, thinks they're spending this and the wife thinks they're spending this. Right.
Oh.
The wife doesn't value the golf or the hunting membership for the husband, and the husband doesn't necessarily value the Amazon or the other shopping budget for the wife. Right. And so it's, part of our job is to, sometimes almost act as a financial counselor in a way, and, make sure that both parties in the marriage, right, understand everything that's going on and how each individual's person's goals and needs and wants can be met, while still making sure that the plan for them as a couple financially does not deteriorate.
Right. Yeah. I think, Richard hit on something there. And we've mentioned it before on the show, Lou Ann. I've said, hey, part of my job, it seems like I'm almost a counselor.
Yeah.
Not that we're having to counsel marriages or or even like keep the husband and wife from fighting in the office. That's not at all what we're saying, but just making sure that everything is kind of on the same page. And, there are situations where, we have been in meetings and it's like, oh, I didn't know we were spending that. And, and it's not, I wouldn't say necessarily that they don't value each other's, hobbies, I guess. And it's more that sometimes you just have enough money coming in. Here, let me say it this way. Income covers up sin, and sin being your spending. So if you have enough income, you really don't pay attention at times to what you're spending. So I think that's where the big disagreement comes in is, hey, I didn't know we were spending that. And then once you start looking at it, you're like, oh my gosh, we are really spending that. And so that's where we come into play. And ours, when we're at the office, Luann, we are looking at more than just your accounts. We're taking a look at your plan holistically. And I think that's what separates us in the marketplace today. 256-937-2010. Give us a call for your discovery session. 256-937-2010.
We'll explore how to make sure your money does last as long as you do when we come back. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Wait. Now, wait a little longer. Great. You may have just increased your lifetime income by tens of thousands of dollars. That's how Social Security can work for you. The longer you wait, the more money you may get. Deciding when to start taking your Social Security benefits is one of the most important retirement decisions you'll make. Cris Wallace and the team at WG Financial Group can show you the options and help make the right decision for you and your situation. Call them today, 256-937-2010. You spent decades paying in. Optimize what comes out. Cris Wallace and the WG Financial Group team can help you squeeze every penny out of your Social Security benefits. Don't wait any longer. Call now, 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government.
Get the most out of your retirement with WG Financial Group's comprehensive investment and wealth management services. While we don't fully endorse active investment management, we believe in regular portfolio adjustments to potentially achieve better returns for our clients. Schedule a meeting today by calling 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010.
Hi, thank you for joining our show today. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Cris Wallace, Richard Constantine, and Graham Bauer. And saving money for retirement is one thing, but it is a whole different ball game if you're trying to make sure your money lasts, because we don't know how long it needs to last, right? We don't know how long we're going to live in retirement. So, Graham, once we're confident that we've saved enough money to, quit our job and retire, how can we make sure that we don't outlive that savings?
Yeah, well, in our last segment, we're kind of talking about saving for retirement, creating a budget. And then I think this is kind of, now we're on the flip side of that, which is more like spending the money and making sure the money doesn't run out. So that, at least from what I see, that's one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have. I think we covered a lot of good topics on that as far as, income streams and all of that, and talk a little bit about that. But I think one thing that I've seen recently, especially that can be a big risk to outliving your money, is specifically with people who are retiring a bit younger. So when I say a bit younger, kind of talking about the maybe pre-62 crowd, which for us would generally be maybe somewhere between 55 and 62, which, might not be super young to a lot of people, but it is, I would say, the minority of people getting out around that age. And what we'll see with them is a lot of times they run into a lot bigger risk of outliving their money. And the reason for that is kind of simple. It's because we're projecting them to have longer lives. Someone that comes in and is like, oh, I'm 74 and I'm just now going to retire. They're probably not going to be quite as concerned about outliving their money. We're probably not going to be quite as concerned depending on what they have saved. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, they're not going to have as many years to be filling as someone who's retiring at, say age 60 or age 55. And it's not like you can't retire at those ages, because we have plenty of people that, do retire around those ages. But when you do, the portfolio can be a lot more sensitive to pulling, large amounts off of it early on. So it's kind of a twofold thing, because we want people to spend their money. We want them to go out and play, and we want them to do that while they're still younger and healthy to do it. What it comes down to more so is just the efficiency of doing that. What accounts we're pulling the money out of, not pulling excessive amounts out in these years, minimizing the tax bill. Are we going to do Roth conversions? So there's so many things, I think, in those years that are really, really pivotal, because you're not going to have that Social Security income yet. And for a lot of people, that's their only guaranteed income source. Yeah. So that means a lot of times we're making up 100% of the income that they need to live off of from the portfolio. So those withdrawal rates can be, a lot higher. And sometimes if that's just for, a couple of years, that might not be a big deal. But that's when, occasionally we'll get into that conversation about something like an income annuity for some people. And, I know that can be kind of a bad word for people to hear. Some people don't like it, but, it is something that we have conversations with and have done for people who are retiring on the earlier side, because they have a long time that they're going to be pulling income off their portfolio. And a lot of times that can really stabilize the plan, because when we're looking at 30 years in retirement, well, now we got to make sure we have income still coming in at the end of this 30 years. And if you're someone that just has Social Security, you might need another guaranteed income source. So that's a conversation with some people. But overall, I think the main thing is just maximizing the efficiency of how we're going to pull that money, and making sure we're not going too heavy-handed early on.
Yeah, I think if you retire at age 60, I think you gotta plan on 30 years of retirement at that point. I think if you're 55, you're probably looking at, 35 years, and that's a long time. That's literally as long in retirement as you probably worked in your younger life. So, to Graham's point here, the big risk is retiring early. You're retiring early, so the money's got to last a lot longer. And, with that, you're also younger, so you're able to do more things. I won't say you get to do. You're able to do more things because you're 55 at that point. You're still pretty young. I'll be 51 in May now, and I'm going, man, that's 55, just 4 years away at this point. But and I'm not retiring. I can't retire that early. So, but if I did, I would definitely want to do things. So I think building a spending plan is incredibly important, and building in some contingencies, because you have to think about, once you do retire, you're literally no longer funding those accounts, and you're literally pulling money out of them to do the things that you want to do, that you saved, to be able to do. But you have to be, conscious of how you're spending that money, and have in my opinion, a very defined spending plan.
I'm thinking how wonderful it would be to have that guidance from you guys, to
it is wonderful.
Yeah. Figure out what to do.
We're wonderful guys, right?
You are. These wonderful, crazy guys. No, remove the word crazy. That's for sure. They're wonderful, and they're very helpful. But
we're a little crazy too.
Depends on the day.
You can get silly, yes, on air, probably in the office too, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of dark chocolate in the office.
Oh,
so,
yeah, I know about that.
Some excess energy.
If we get sugared up, watch out.
Well, one thing that, as we're talking living a long time, right? It's like, oh, that's wonderful. We all want that long life, and we want to be healthy, but we're not guaranteed that. And so let's go through some of those risks that we could be exposed to for living a long life, Graham.
Yeah, kind of going back to the last question, I think the biggest risk associated with living a long life is, kind of running through all your money. And that's what a lot of people are scared of about longevity, is thinking, can I fund my lifestyle for this long? And a lot of that, I think, for some people has to do with inflation. and not being invested. I hear a lot of stories from clients about how their parents have done things, and a lot of their parents, they've made it through retirement, they've done a good job, but a lot of them, don't really have much close to the end. I was talking to a specific client a couple weeks ago, and she was sort of telling me about her dad's situation. And he lives, I think, full time in a VA center at this point, and he seems to like it. But she said he pretty much ran through most of his retirement savings 10 years ago, and he's probably close to 90 at this point, and he's still alive. But she said a big reason for that is because he was all in cash. He didn't like the market at all. He didn't want to invest at all, and so he kept everything in the bank, and he kept spending money. And his savings didn't keep up. Obviously, inflation happens. And if you're not keeping up with it at all, that can be a big problem. So, going into her retirement, one of her big things was, I want to stay invested. Maybe that doesn't necessarily mean 100% stock or anything like that, but, have some kind of return that we're looking to get on the money. So it's not just sitting stagnant, because if you do live a long life, if you're blessed to live 90, 95 years, you're probably going to need some kind of return on your money because, again, you're not funding those accounts anymore. You're just pulling off of them. So really the only interest you're going to be getting that's significant in that long of a time span is going to be investing. So I think that's a big thing that we encourage people to do is to, obviously we're probably going to scale back a little bit at retirement for a lot of people. We're not keeping everybody super duper aggressive, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to get to the point too early where you don't have anything invested, because then you could end up, kind of getting a lot of your savings eaten up by inflation and just cost of living and not really keeping up. And, he's not struggling really bad or anything. He still gets his Social Security, still gets a military pension, but he doesn't really have any savings on top of that. And I think that's what people usually mean when they say outliving their savings. They don't necessarily mean they're going to have to go get a job at like Publix at 90 years old, but more so outliving the wealth that they've accumulated.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors at play here. There's a statistic, and I said I was going to grab it, and I didn't. So I'm going to try to grab it from my memory. But in the short run, there's and I put something like this actually now that I think about it on our Facebook page. There's like a little graph out there, but essentially in the short run, the risk of sitting in cash is not that great. But the longer you sit in cash, the more likely you are to underperform the market. And again, I'm by no means saying that everybody should be all 100% stock. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I think it's important, kind of to what Graham's alluding to here, is that you should build a plan to ensure that your money's actually working for you. And you might say, well, it's cool. I'm making 5% return on my, cash right now. And the S&P today, year to date is up right around 5%. Last year, it was up over 20%. And so there was a lot of missed opportunity there as well. So, again, just the longer people sit in cash, the more risk they run of underperformance. And then that then can trickle down into, well, I'm going to run out of my savings. And if, Graham was talking about the Social Security and the military pension, well, let's just say you don't have a pension and you just have Social Security. Well, that's a pretty tight lifestyle at that point.
256-937-2010. I want you to remember that number, call that number, text the word visit to that number for a complimentary discovery session. If you have any questions what we're talking about today or any other question regarding retirement, you can certainly get those questions answered complimentary. And we thank you for joining us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. So I guess one more quick question before we probably have to take a break would be, going back to Cris and I talking about, will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? That's something that maybe a lot of people don't plan for. So Graham, why don't you tell us some ways that you help your clients prepare for this scenario?
Yeah, and you're right, Luann. We'll have to get out to a break in a second, but I'll quickly go through a couple scenarios. I think there's different stages of life that we go through, and in each scenario, there's a different way that we should probably be, protecting our family, or different things we're going to need to do. So, in an early marriage or young kid situation, got to have your term life insurance in place. Make sure you have your basic legal documents. That's really important for family protection. Then as we get into the pre-retirement, early retirement age, this is when we need to start thinking about how are we going to take Social Security? How are we going to elect our survivorship on our pensions if we have those? And then maybe look at long-term care while you're still, a little bit younger and it might not be quite as expensive. And then lastly, when you get to retirement and late in retirement, that's when you really need to be thinking about your estate and legacy planning, your giving, all of those things even more. So if you're in any of these stages and you want to sit down and have a conversation and get help with all the things we talked about here today and more, give us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010.
We'll be right back with the rest of our show. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Don't panic in uncertain market times. Let Cris Wallace be your trusted guide. Call Cris Wallace today at 256-937-2010 for expert advice and support. That's 256-937-2010.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Hi, we're so glad you joined us today. Thank you for spending your day with us. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer, here with Cris Wallace and the gang at WG Financial Group. All right, we have This Week in History. I always like to go through, and I know you do too, Chris. Do you remember back in 1982, Jane Fonda and her workout video?
Hey, listen, at that point, I was 9 years old.
Do you remember that?
Oh, what guy doesn't remember that Jane Fonda workout?
Fonda.
That's how Chris got in such good shape, You come to the office nowadays, you're going to hear that video probably coming out of the office.
My God.
Played
He's
in the
there
lobby.
doing jumping jacks.
I remember Feel the Burn. I was in the middle of the whole aerobic craze, guys, because I was like, right out of my teens in my college days. And Feel the Burn.
That's really funny what Graham said. That's how Chris got in good shape. Yeah. It's funny.
So anyway, her first workout video, 1982. 1986, oh my gosh, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened and 32 people died. Dozens suffered from radiation burns. So that was huge this month in history. And then also, oh gosh, so exciting, 1993, World Wide Web launched in the public domain, very first time.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that that's what www dot. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah,
Oh my
World
gosh.
I actually
Wide
didn't.
Web.
Didn't know that.
I can't believe they don't teach that in school.
Oh my gosh.
Funny, Graham.
I didn't even know it was an acronym. I thought it was we just picked some letters.
Oh my word! Oh, that is the funniest thing ever.
That's about as bad as me and the Sherpa. Might be worse.
World Wide
Oh my
Web.
gosh.
Yes,
That's hilarious.
www.
Oh man, the things you learn on this show that
Right?
we learn about our staff members.
People are laughing.
Yeah.
They're chuckling at us right now.
Oh my gosh, they're turning the radio off. These guys are a bunch of idiots. They don't know anything.
Yeah, if this was a history show, we would have been off the air many years
I was
ago.
going to
Yeah.
say, remember this so the next time you're on Jeopardy, okay?
Oh, yes. The next time.
World Wide Web. Okay, and now this will be kind of fun. A candy bar. What did it cost? Okay, first of all, I remember when it was a dime. Okay, so in 1974, what did a 2.3 ounce candy bar cost, Chris?
The notes say 15 cents.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't. I
Oh,
was
you were too
74. I
little.
was still
Well, you were
on the bottle.
You weren't eating candy bars yet.
On the bottle makes it sound like you were an alcoholic back in 1974.
Yeah, well.
I was on that milk bottle,
Let's
the
hope,
milk
yeah.
train still.
Yeah. Then how about this? In '04, do you remember what candy bars cost in '04? How old were you then?
Oh,
You have to do the math. I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta do the math on it. I was probably 40 in that, 41,
Okay.
2004.
85 cents you were spending on
No,
candy
I was
bars.
31.
I was
Oh
gonna
my
say,
gosh.
you're
This show's been a disaster
okay.
for me. This show's been a disaster.
Okay, 30s. You were in your 30s.
I was in my 30s,
Okay.
85 cents. I didn't buy
85
candy bars back then, but I
Because you
still
were a
couldn't do
health
math
nut.
then either.
You were a
It
health
was just
nut.
protein bars.
Protein bars, right? Right.
No McDonald's. Back.
Oh gosh. Okay, how about now, guys? This is to all three of you. What do you even know what you spend on a can? Do you even buy candy bars?
Luann, we got an office full of dark chocolate.
Oh,
I got
yeah.
bars everywhere.
I bet
yes,
you-
my dark chocolate bars. But this is not a candy bar, so we're talking about candy bar versus dark.
like a
I pay.
Butterfinger.
I try to buy them on sale. Anyways,
Same.
a couple bucks for
Yep.
$2.50 for a dark chocolate bar.
Okay, $2.50 for a regular candy bar. If you were to buy a Butterfinger or a Snickers, they are $1.79 now.
Man,
And
Oh.
it's less.
Oh,
you can see
yeah.
on the
Yes,
ounces.
Graham, you're
They
right.
dropped the ounces
meant to
down.
point that out. It's shrinkflation.
yeah, it's sort of like I won't mention the company on the air, but I stop by. I rarely get fast food burgers. It is so rare.
Mm-hmm.
But I did the other night, and it was like the size of a slider.
You're like,
I-
what?
yeah, Thought I should do like a Facebook or a TikTok, short video of me
Yeah.
eating that thing in one bite.
Right? You should
You
have.
know,
You
yeah,
should have.
because it's just they've shrunk. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef
You
and
know.
the bun and everything?
Everything. Yeah, it's like a doggone
Yeah.
slider.
Yeah, shrinkflation for sure. But anyway, all right. So that's our little This Week in History for everybody. Now, why don't we get to Richard's recap? Richard, tell us what happened this past week that you'd like to bring to the airwaves.
Yeah, Luann, one of the things that, we saw recently was with a client who, and this is becoming a more popular occurrence for clients that we are meeting for the first time, is that they don't really understand what a Roth IRA is, right? When you set up your 401k through work, you have to make your investment choices up front, put dollars in, and your company is typically going to invest those dollars for you right away. Whereas in a Roth IRA, that's just a shell essentially, right? And then the funds inside are what you're actually able to, or the dollars that are inside that shell, you still have to go in and invest those dollars. And why that's important is I've been seeing recently there's the common question is, how risky are Roth IRAs? And the answer to that question is, well, it's really dependent on what you actually do with that Roth IRA, right? So that's one thing. And then another thing that's attached with that is people aren't utilizing them to their greatest ability, right? The IRS and the United States government, they've imposed almost like a double capping system on it, right? You can only contribute $7,000 into the Roth IRA if you're under 50 and $8,000 if you're older than 50. And two, you're not able to contribute to a Roth IRA the traditional way or the normal way if you make over a certain amount of money. And so, they're putting caps on it because it really is an incredible investment vehicle. They wouldn't be putting limits on these accounts if there was not, a beneficial reason for the person to utilize them, right? It would just be, you can contribute as much as you want. Yeah, go ahead, right?
Right.
But there is a distinct advantage to having a Roth IRA if you are able, if you're under the income limits. And, it's just one thing that with all the misinformation that people see, just want to make sure that people, understand that one, you should utilize them if you can. And two, you actually have to invest the funds that are inside of your Roth IRA. It's not going to automatically invest like your 401k.
Right. Good point. I think it is a vehicle that if you have access to be able to use it, then by all means, you should be doing everything within your financial power to take advantage of a Roth IRA. We think it's an excellent vehicle. So good points there. I want to tag on to Richard's recap. Just a little something that I ran into this week as well. This actually happened yesterday. So a radio client who has heard the radio show for quite a while, or a radio prospect has been listening for a while. And then he also saw us on TV. So we have a lot of TV spots as well, early in the morning on the weekends. And so he came in and we did, what we call our discovery session, and we're going through it. And I've said this before, it's pretty detailed. I mean, it's going to take maybe an hour and 15 minutes at the most, but it's very, very detailed, very conversational, very holistic planning focused. You don't walk in the door and we say, how much money do you have? It's not like that at all. It's a very conversational meeting. And I think it's kind of fun. I love to do them. Like, it's probably the most, it's my favorite meeting of any of the meetings, is that kind of discovery session.
Yeah.
So anyway, this gentleman asked me, he says, well, how many people that come in here actually become your client? And I gave him a percentage, and he said, well, it's kind of high. And I said, well, it is not like, it's not 100%. I said, not every person that walks through the door becomes a client of ours, but there's a large percentage that do, because they've listened to me for a while. They understand how we operate. And I said, we're probably ahead of our peers a little bit, but I said, we're definitely not bringing on 100% at this point. So we talked on, did the discovery session. And finally, I don't know, I think I was on like fourth page of the discovery sheet. And he just says, hey, well, wait a minute, you're asking a lot of really detailed questions. And he kind of got a little serious, and I was like, yeah, okay. He said, you're asking a lot of questions. I thought this was, he said, I thought this was a discovery session.
Okay.
And I said, it is. I'm discovering more about you, and you're welcome to ask anything you want about me. But yeah, this is our discovery sessions. I kind of told you in the beginning, I was going to ask a lot of really good questions, probably some of which you've never been asked before by a financial advisor. And we started, talking a few minutes later. He said, listen, you just seem like you're giving away a lot of information.
Huh.
And I said, I am. It's my job is to help people.
Huh.
And I said, you've taken time out of your day to come sit down and come visit with us. And I said, the least I can do is, if I see something that you can correct now, I'm going to tell you that. And then what you do, I can't go home with you and make sure you do whatever I'm telling you what you should do. But what I can do is give you the information and the data behind it, so you can go make those corrections while we work on the other details of the financial plan. You see, people that come in the office, one of the big things that I think that we do differently is we dig a little bit deeper and we ask some questions that really aren't related all to your financial portfolio. It's going to be more geared towards family protection. And I can tell you that there's probably 2 questions that I ask in that discovery session that nobody's ever asked you before. And I won't say them on the air because I say them for my meeting. And that way I can talk to the family about, what I think they should do. And a lot of times I tie in my own personal story, because some of these questions have come from my life experience. So being 50 years old, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. We've learned that on this show with a Sherpa, right? But what I do know very well is financial planning, and I know risk mitigation, and I have kids that are grown and in college, and I've seen things in life happen. And then I have a lot of young guys that are really tech savvy and brilliant and, very smart and highly schooled and highly educated. And like I said before, I'm the old dog at the office that's seen a lot of stuff. I'm the gray beard in the manufacturing plant that says that blueprint's not going to work. We're going to have to do something different. And I think that's what makes our firm unique to the families here in Huntsville that come in and choose to spend an hour and 15 minutes to learn about their retirement destiny. So, Luann, that is all we have for today's show. It's been awesome.
Show. Yes,
it's been a great show for everybody except me. So
stop.
If you'd like to come in and sit down and do a discovery session, you can do that by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010. Hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.